Thank you for joining me on this workshop. Today I'm going to be doing a mixed media canvas, and I'm starting out squirting some of this unbleached titanium acrylic paint on here, and it's old paint, so it's coming out in big solid gobs. It's not really cooperating the way that I really wanted it to, but really I'm just trying to get an overall nice thick layer of coverage for this one. I want it to be a solid acrylic base for what I'm going to do afterwards. So the title of this is called Legacy, and when I was thinking about making this canvas, I was thinking about all of the kinds of legacies that women leave behind them, and how they leave their mark, and how they carry on traditions and carry on family stories and stuff like that. And one of the ways that I was thinking traditionally for generations and generations that women will do this is with quilting. Many households have quilt or are full of quilts of, or maybe they just have one that has been passed down from generation to generation. Maybe it's hidden away in an attic, or maybe it's used every day. But one of those ways that I was thinking of was through quilting, through blankets. So the thing that I'm going to do here is I'm starting off this tag just because I had the extra color there, and the title of this, or the saying that I'm going to put on this piece, is leave a legacy of love, laughter, and life. And that's really important to me, leaving something behind, an impression of who I was and who I wanted to be behind when I go. I'm hoping that I have a long time before I go, but you never know. So I just smeared some of that unbleached titanium onto that tag, and then I let it dry. It kind of made it look like a light brown, like a light wood, because it had the streaks from my finger. And then I'm just handwriting out that saying, leave a legacy of love, laughter, and life. I'm writing it with my jelly roll. I really love my jelly roll. I'm going to be sad when it runs out of ink, actually. And after that, I'm just going around the edges, and I'm putting a little bit of detail around the edge of the tag, because what I'm going after by the time this tag is done is that I want it to look a little bit like worn leather, like something that's old-fashioned and kind of worn out and it's had its day kind of thing. So, excuse me, I let that dry, and then I used my heat gun because I really wanted to solidly dry before I added my next layer to this tag. And the thing that's going to drive me crazy throughout this whole project is how warped that becomes. So here I'm using the clear crackle paint. It comes with a brush on the inside of it. It's by Ranger and Tim Holtz. And the thicker the layer, the better the crackle. And I put on a thick layer, but I should have done 2 layers, let this dry, and then put on another layer before I did anything with it, but I didn't. Next is dealing with the base. I really wanted it, what I was trying to do, I should have taken a black ink in my spray, but I didn't. That's what I'm going to do next time. If I ever try to use this stencil again, I'll use it with ink. What I did was I made a mixture of acrylic paint in my little spritzer, and it came out as straight shots rather than anything else. So then I tried to add water to it to make it a little bit less goopy and less messy, shook it up, and then tried spraying that, and it still just came out as streaks. So I just covered the whole thing, hoping it would leak through the stencil, and the stencil is the gaps are so small that nothing was going anywhere. So I just took my paper towel and I smudged it. I pushed the paint, or the ink, yeah, it's paint and water into the pieces of the stencil. And it turned out, it's not a perfect thing. It didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to, according to the stencil, but I'm happy with the way that it did turn out, because I wanted this crackled, worn out, old-fashioned, broken up background, and that's essentially what I ended up with there. It worked out pretty well. So I had to dry it a little bit, and then I took this, my matte medium, and I just started putting it on a little bit, but it was starting to streak, so I thought, oh well, I'm not gonna put the matte medium onto where I just put my acrylic paint. I'm going to put it right on the patches. And this is where the quilting, the hand-me-down quilting idea came from. And And these are just little quilters blocks, and they're from, I've actually bought them as a stack of quilters block in exactly as they are, and they're all the same design. Well, most of them are except for the middle one, and they're just different color tones in that same palette. So this is part of that legacy, you know, leaving a quilt behind, leaving history, leaving a legacy of creativity and all that stuff. So this is the quilt that's going on there. I bought these blocks at a craft show, I was going to say, and the craft show was here in my city, and it was just this huge thing with all these scrapbookers in the center and crafters in the center, and then around the outside was the trade show type of thing. And part of that was quilting, part of it was paper crafts and stamping and mixed media and all kinds of stuff like that. The things that are coming out in the quilting industry are just amazing. I can't fathom. I just can't believe some of the stuff that is there. But that would be a pretty expensive hobby too. I picked up this stencil at a garage sale, and I'm going to be using it a little bit later. But right now I'm trying to put on that doll. So I don't know if you recognize the doll from one of my previous pieces from one of my journal pages. I was going to be using it as a set of 5 dolls, but she didn't match the color tone of the project, so I took this bridal doll, this vintage bridal doll out, and or antique bridal doll out, and I'm using her here now. Because dolls are kind of a legacy too. They're definitely a hand-me-down kind of thing. And depending on what the doll is made out of, it could have been passed down already at this time by 3 generations. Dolls from the late 1800s are often still in not too bad of shape if they've been treasured. So that's one of the things that I was thinking of as a legacy as well. Now what I'm squeezing into my palette here is a bunch of different colors of paint, and I kind of want everything to kind of match the background, sort of. So I'm pulling that unbleached titanium back into my palette to go around the edges here. And I was doing it with a brush, but what I was really trying to go for was kind of an aged edge on the edge of this, and then making sure that the cut edge, the zigzag cut edge from the tooth scissors, that was coming out. That's what I was wanting. And I'm using a little bit of black in there too. I probably should have just left it like this, but then I brought the red in, and the red's not quite 100% match. It'll be fine by the end of the piece, but at this point it's not really matching anything that's on the page. It's kind of more lipstick reddish than I had expected it to be. So after I've gone around the edge and made them as the way that I wanted them, that's when I started putting on the girl. So what I did is I covered the back of her in the matte gel medium, as kind of a glue, and then I put her on and glued her down. And anytime you have multiple layers like this, you do have to go around the whole thing, go down the middle, go around the whole thing, and tuck some more glue in underneath it to make it adhere down, and then put a nice thick layer over the top of it to make sure that it all lays properly and stays down and doesn't make big bubbles on you. I haven't had any problems with that yet. There have been some that have bubbled a little bit, or that have had creases in them or whatever, but I don't mind the extra texture, the extra look to it. And one thing that you do have to be careful with when you're using a matte medium is your brush strokes. So if you don't want any brush strokes, then you're going to have to be a hell of a lot more careful than I am. I felt there was too much red in this picture, of that dark red, so I took 2 rolls of washi tape. One roll of washi tape is just these antique type flowers, and the other one says bloom where you are planted, which I wrote a blog about that. It's on my website on lizziesworkshop.com. I wrote a blog about bloom where you are planted, and how novel the idea of that is. And so on here, I was trying to make it look like the words were laid over top of the fabric of the flowers underneath, and then I covered the washi tape with the matte medium so that it would actually stay down, because washi tape wouldn't be staying in this situation because everything underneath it is too wet. So I glued it down too. And then I took my Liquitex flexible modeling paste and took the roses from this stencil, and this stencil is a Prima stencil. I picked it up at a garage sale where I got about $150 worth of product for about 80 bucks, which wasn't too bad. The thing is I probably should have negotiated a little bit better, but my son was needing to be picked up from kindergarten, so I was kind of in a rush. If I hadn't been in a rush, I would have gotten quite a bit more stuff, because I hadn't spent my whole budget, and I had only gone through things quickly, and I found a stash of things at the bottom of a bin that I really wanted to go through, but I didn't end up having any time. And of course, because it's a garage sale, everything is used. You know, some things were brand new, but the majority of what was available was used. So when you get paints and spritzes and stuff that are already open, sometimes the nozzle on the spritzer doesn't open, and sometimes the paint is a little bit too thick, and so on. So now I'm deciding what colors to paint this, and I know that it shows that I did this right after I put it on, but I really didn't. I let it dry overnight. And then I'm taking that unbleached titanium and I'm mixing it with my brown to create like a creamy brown that will be slightly darker than the background, and then going over all the branches of the flowers. And then after that I will go over with my finger with the darker brown to add a little bit of texture to the sticks, to the branches and stems. You know, after I finish this project, because I'm going to put the leaves in the unbleached titanium as well, and by the time that I'm finished this project, I'm feeling like it's finished, but it's been sitting up on my wall for the last couple of days, and every time I look at it, I feel like there's too many layers in the same color palette, and everything's kind of stacked on top of each other and too busy, and I almost feel like I need to go over the leaves of these flowers and these stems just to give it a little bit of texture and to pop it back out on top of the page as if there's roses growing out over top of the page, and actually have them as speaking loudly, because right now they kind of fade and they kind of daydream and they kind of they're just there, they're not really in your face, and I'm feeling as though I need to add green to this palette just in the leaves to make the roses pop. And you know, I've been staring at it for a couple of days now, as I said, and I think that that's what's going to happen here. If you follow my blog on lizziesworkshop.com, you will probably see updated pictures as well once I paint that green. It probably won't be for a while. Right now it's just the end of September, so when I get tired of looking at it just as it is and kind of Blasville, you'll see the green on my website. So what I'm doing here is I've gone through and I painted it in a mixture of the red paint and the unbleached titanium. And then after that, all I did is take the leftovers of that mixture and I added more red to it to make it one more step darker. And then I added the rest of the red to the existing shade of red and made it a little bit darker once again, just to add some depth to the roses. So 3 layers of the same kind of coloring. But if you've seen my other videos, I am right back at Strawberry Milkshake Land. I don't know how to get out of Strawberry Milkshake Land. I think that's kind of my calling. Those silly strawberry milkshakes. I just love that color, I guess. I keep getting drawn to it and it keeps sucking me in to go on my page. So the reason that I put the roses on there instead of some other flower or birds or whatever is because in some towns and cities and families, The rose is a legacy, and not in the way of like a family symbol or anything like that, but antique roses. And so throughout time, roses are bred and maintained and taken care of, and they're mixed with this rose and that rose, and in some countries, roses are something that is handed down from generation to generation, just like a favored recipe. And you would only grow that rose in your garden, and you would replant and you would splice, and you would only grow it with that kind of rose or whatever. But you can go online and you can buy these antique roses, and it's bushes that, you know, they keep growing new ones from the same bushes, but it's these old roses that are just so precious to some families. Now this is kind of interesting. The thing that I put on there for the tag is called fibers, and I wanted it to kind of hang there like a ribbon that had been shredded, and that's what I was really looking for, was a ribbon that had been shredded. So I added some of the early espresso ink to it to darken it up and make it different shades, and then I started attaching it. But because the tag was well warped and well it didn't lay flat, and it was so heavy because I'd added the crackle paint to it, it really wasn't sticking at all. So I took my heat gun to it to try and dry the layer below it in order to get it to stick. So then I made sure it was all stuck, and then I added another layer. Now what I do afterwards, after it's all sort of glued down, is I go around the edge like that, and I put this edge of acrylic medium around the edge, so that as it dries, it kind of sucks the mixed medium in there, or the acrylic medium in there, and it will actually adhere and be this nice smooth solid layer once everything is done. Now I had gone around the border with a water-based ink, with just my finger and some water-based ink, and in order to make sure that that didn't move across the entire thing, I'm just taking my brush and going one stroke, one direction, to cover that up with the matte medium, just to stabilize it, to lock it in where it is and not let it smear all over the page. And then I take my matte medium and I go over the entire thing and lock everything in, stabilize everything, seal it all up, make sure that nothing's going to move or go anywhere. I really like how this piece ended up, but I do think that I need to add that green in just to pop the flowers out, make them kind of a layer on their own instead of melding in. My initial intent was to color the leaves and stuff the same color as the background so that I could bring the background forward, and I guess I did end up doing that because it's really hard to see the leaves. You see the pops of strawberry milkshake, but you don't see the leaves and the stems on there as well as I had hoped. So I think, yeah, that green is going to come into play here. So I covered the whole thing in the matte medium and let it all solidify. I think I left it for a couple hours so I could go have lunch with my son, and then I went through with my jelly roll and outlined everything, outlined the flowers, outlined the stems, outlined the leaves, and that did help to pop them out, but it didn't pop them out enough to my way of thinking. I don't actually draw that fast. That's, I think, 10. I sped it up by 10 times for this part, just so that you wouldn't have to watch me meticulously drawing over the entire canvas here. So I went through and I outlined anything that was in the paste. Anything that was a 3D element, I went and outlined it. And that definitely does help. It's not quite enough though. So if you're asking what the colors of acrylic paint are, this red that I'm using is called Christmas Red. It's nothing special. I bought it at the dollar store. So it's a crafter's acrylic, And the brown that I'm using is apple barrel, and it's called nutmeg brown. And I don't even know if you can even get this because it's something from my grandmother, so it's like 1,006 years old. And then the Artist Loft acrylic for the unbleached titanium. It's all acrylic paint, so nothing out of the usual. But I have so many dolls in my house and stuff. My husband went and looked at this and he says, "What more? We need more dolls. We need more eyes staring at us from the walls." So I'm getting the hint that he doesn't want any more faces in the house. So here is the finished. This is what the thing looked like before I put the tag on top. But here's the roses and the finished product here. And once again, thank you for joining me on Lizzie's workshop. I hope you come and visit again.